Okay, so you're all set and you have your question, what it is that you wonder about, whether you're wondering what it is that many enslaved people ate, or how pregnant women were treated, or you know what if the kid was biracial, how were they treated. You can find all these things very specific within these narratives. um, One of the best sources, I think, is actually the first one here. It's a collection of all of the WPA slave narratives, and I'm going to show you exactly how it is that you could navigate this one. So let's click on Library of Congress website. Um, what you'll notice is a couple things as you scroll down here. All the volumes are first listed by state. Here's Arkansas, South Carolina, etc. And then, in addition to being listed by state, it's also then listed by the last name of the person that was interviewed. So in this case, if we go to Georgia, we click on part one, Adams to Fur, um, what we'll notice is that anyone with a last name between Adams and Fur that was interviewed will appear here. Now, um, the best way to look at this is to go under here where it says download. Just click on, make sure it says PDF and click on go. It's going to bring up a PDF file. In this case, you'll notice that the PDF file is 362 pages. Now, I'm not asking you to read 362 pages. You can if you want. Now, I mean, you could just read a few of them. And as you'll notice, if you're looking for, say, women, here's Adams, here's Fur. Let's imagine you want to get the perspective of women. So you want to find a woman on here, Minnie Davis, page 251. Sometimes you're able to, up in the PDF, you could put it into page 251. Now, technically, it ended up on page 242. So you would have to scroll down to 251. And here you have the account of Minnie Davis, who was from Athens, Georgia. And a couple cool things you can see is who interviewed them, who wrote it down. And then you can just read. And all of them actually are pretty much the same, because they'll tell you, they ask the same questions, like where did you live, what was your master's name, all of these things. Here they have a brief introduction to kind of set the scene. You don't see that in a lot of these narratives, where it says the bareness of Minnie Davis's yard was relieved by a single rose bush, etc. And then they just quote her. So you can read all of her account if you'd like. It seems to be, let's see, 4, 5. This one's 6. This one's quite a few pages long. Now, I will say they are quite interesting to read, because you really get to know this person, how they grew up, all these kinds of things. Now, let's imagine you also wanted to do, you didn't want to read all these things. You could do a keyword search. And I have a Mac, so I'm Command F. I think Control F might be for some other types of computers. But if I hit Command F, you'll see that this search box will come up. And let's imagine we wanted to look for something about wives or something like that. So I type in the word wife, and I see the word wife comes up 48 times. Just by clicking the arrows, I could start to read about, read in context, to give you some ideas about these things. In this case, someone's saying they were married 4 times, all of his wives dying. I guess natural deaths. That brings up another thing. You'll actually see a lot of times the interview person will write down the words they hear phonetically, not necessarily the words as we would know them spelled, but the way they heard them. This, for example, is natural. You'll see that with the word chillun, actually. Chillun. They'll use for the word children, because that's the way they heard it. So if you're looking to do a keyword search for children, you don't find a lot, you might also want to do chillun. As you read through, let's imagine you wanted to learn how people ate. As you read through, you might be able to find other things you weren't that really familiar with. Maybe we're reading here, while the food consisted of the same things as did the field slaves, sometimes choice morsels came back to the kitchen from the master's table. He says that his mother's clothes were of better quality than those who were not employed in the house. So you can start to read into that as to, here's something about clothing, or, the difference between people who are in the house versus people who are outside the house. And you can really start to get a lot of information. If you want to use some of the other links as well, you pretty much have to do the same thing. Let's imagine I want to read this one, Documenting the South, which has a lot of things. They're listed alphabetically, all these biographies. In this case, I'm going to pick Robert Anderson. You want to go to HTML file right here, because the HTML file will be all of it in text. And you can do the same thing, keyword search for, I don't know, maybe I want to see about if they had pets, so I'll type in the word dog or something like that. Here's one time the word dog showed up. Let's imagine we also want to think about escape, see if there was a lot of escapes. So twice it comes up in this person's account. I told him there's a narrow escape, but he should be thankful. That's essentially how we do it. Now, when you do find one that you do like, if you could, take the entire URL, and I've actually given you guys a place to put in the works cited. Put it in here, click Cite. This will do it for you. I guess in this case they're just putting the URL in there, so I'm perfectly fine with you taking the URL and putting it just somewhere you can give credit. When you're in the WPA, actually, it actually tells you, depending on what you've clicked on. If you scroll down a little bit, you can actually get the exact citation, the MLA citation. So for the WPA narratives, I'd want you to cite this. And that's essentially it. This is how you would fill in your textual evidence. I'd like actual quotes in here. So let's say I found something good. It was from Robert Anderson. I don't know. It was this. He was preaching in some of the churches or something like that. And I'd actually want you to put the exact quote in there as your evidence, and then you'd find a second and a third thing to support whatever it was that your thesis was. That's essentially it. I'll be here for questions always.